Recording started.
Talk shoe. Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 544. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me today I have my regular co-host, Matt Longeth. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. Matt, how you doing today?
Eric, I am well, better than I deserve to be. On a bit of personal news, I'd like to share with the community as a whole that I have now officially came on board as a full-time employee of VMware. I will be a digital workspace technical account manager and could not be happier with that as far as something I've been really working towards as a long-term career goal. And a special thank you to yourself, Corey, and all the members of the V community as a whole that helped me to get to this path. But enough about me, sir. How are you? How are things out there on the West Coast? And what is the color of the bay?
Well, I'm doing great. Slightly disappointed that, as usual, no one listens to me because I told everybody, do not make this man a permanent employee. You know, we have him under our thumb as a contractor, so why give him what will just hurt us in the end. But they didn't listen to me. They brought you on anyway. So, congratulations. That's great news. Always good to be on the payroll for formally, although you've been contracting with us for quite a while now. So excited about that. The color of the bay, it's a beautiful rainy day today. So it is windy and choppy out in the bay, and it is dark green because it is a rain. Winter has kind of come back. We get our rain in the wintertime in California. So a little bit of extra winter coming in through March here. So we live with that. And I see that Corey Romero is also on the call with us today. So Mr. Romero, how's the weather out there in Utah, and what's happening with vExperts?
You know, the weather in Utah has been fantastic. The last couple of days has been sunny. It's been right around above 55 degrees. Snow is starting to melt. My backyard last week had about 4 feet, and it's almost gone now. But Matt, hey, I wanted to say congratulations. Love having you on. That's great news. I did not know that prior to this call. So a huge smile on my face makes me happy.
Thank you, Corey. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So yeah, vExperts. So we've got the vExperts Sub-Program Awards coming up. They're going to be announced April 3rd. For those of you who do not know what the Sub-Program Awards are, we have the larger vExpert program, and that's for the evangelism work and the advocacy that everyone does in the community about VMware. But we also have specialized programs that are run and led by the business units. And so each person who is actually advocating and evangelizing around the various products and topics and services in these business units, you get the award from the business unit, and you get put into a program, and you actually get direct access to the business unit, where you've got private calls, NDA conversations, roadmaps, all kinds of really, really cool things. And so we're going to kick off 8 sub-programs on April 3rd for modern application modernization, cloud management, cloud providers, NSX, EUC, security, Pro, and the new one is going to be VMware Cloud on AWS. So yeah, happy to announce that, and looking forward to April 3rd.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, good work, Corey. Exciting. It's always going to be a good year as vaccines come in play. I can see us actually seeing more and more of us in person. So excited about that. I know several people on our team have now been vaccinated. So, so that's good. Matt, before I go, in case you're listening, what the topic is today is, what is our topic today? Shoot, I've lost the topic. Oh no.
Carbon black. Agentless protection.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I have the last week's in my notes here. So Carbon Black, agentless protection. We've got Michael Rebmann on the call. He is a senior solutions engineer, so we will get to him momentarily. So thanks for being here, Michael. And Matt, before we get to him, I know we have some events coming up. We've been talking about the events. Maybe you can just run us through what the events are going to be in the next month or so.
So we do. So at the end of this month, 2 major events. So we have FutureNet, which will be the 23rd and 24th. So that's the larger overall event that is going to be done as sort of a premier industry event. And then we have the one really personally that I'm looking forward to is the VMware-based event, which will be on March 31st, which will be the name of the event, Leading Change, Accelerating Your App and Cloud Transformation. I'm sure there's going to be some major announcements here at this March 31st event, and something definitely to look forward to. So again, FutureNet on the 23rd and 24th, where we're going to have some key speakers from the VMware ecosystem, and then our own internal event on the 31st with some major product announcements in and around app and cloud transformation.
All right. Well, go register for those online at VMware.com and get yourself ready for those two events. And we appreciate doing that because we're always trying to drive traffic to those guys to get registration up. Our marketing pays our salaries, and so we do have to do marketing on occasion. All right. With that, we'll transition to Michael. So, Michael, we always start on the community podcast to hear about who you are, what you do at VMware or Carbon Black, and how did you get where you are?
Sure. Thanks for having me. And actually, I found my way to VMware over EUC. So it's great to hear, Matt, that you're joining the family and doing some EUC magic. I worked for Citrix for a short while. I have a strong data center background, did a lot of digital workspace projects. And I joined VMware in 2018 as a solution engineer with the focus on EUC. So I did a lot of Horizon and Workspace ONE. Somehow this was kind of too boring after a while, and I decided to become more a generalist, a so-called core SE, or a regular solution engineer. And I focus on all the topics, all the products VMware has to offer. And I engage with the community, with the partners. And yeah, I have some of the largest and most strategic customers here in Switzerland.
Very nice. Good roadmap. Matt, you have big shoes to follow here now. Apparently, you're going to have to get going. So, Michael, I know you do blogging. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you started blogging, why you blog, and then we'll get into the VMware Carbon Black Cloud Workload Agentless Protection for VMware vSphere workloads. And that blog caught our eyes, and I'll tell you what's going on with this blog. It's called cloud13.ch. We have Dynamic Signal, which pushes out blog articles, and you made the top 10 with regard to like a nice blog article that people are sharing. So why don't you take us through why you blog, and then we'll get into your blog itself.
Yeah, sure. I think the idea came up when I still was working for Citrix, because I was a consultant and I did a lot of projects, customizations. I could talk about problems and use cases. And I thought it's worth to share that, because nobody will give you that information for free. And I thought I should do that. And when I started at VMware, without having any Horizon Workspace, no Workspace ONE knowledge, I had to start from scratch, obviously, since I had really no knowledge, no experience in that matter when it came to the EUC products of VMware. And I said, okay, let's document that. I want to prove the world and everyone that it's possible to start from zero and come up to speed very fast. And said, let's give it a shot. And I was very motivated as a new hire. I was thinking about starting the journey to VCDX. Maybe it's a dream, maybe it's becoming reality someone in the future, but this was the main idea. And as soon as I changed my role within VMware, I saw that there's a lot more to write about. So if we talk about multi-cloud, I think probably you can reach more people in the cloud area, or if we talk about containerization or app modernization. And my blog mostly focus on simplifying the VMware message and the portfolio, because I believe, and this is my personal opinion, that we have so many products at VMware. It's very complicated, and everyone is talking about, let's say, intrinsic security. Everything is built in. It should be bolted on. And I want to normally paraphrase different articles and sentences and write summaries that customers and partners and even VMware employees understand the VMware offering or the value of VMware much better. So this is my goal.
Very nice, very nice. So let's start talking about VMware and Carbon Black and agentless protection. So maybe just give us a summary. Carbon Black's new to VMware in the last year. Most people have heard about it now, but why don't you take us through, what this means? I know that obviously security has always been agent driven. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Carbon Black and your agentless model?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a core SE. I'm not I don't belong to the Carbon Black business unit or the security business unit within VMware. And I was curious what agentless means. Is it really that simple? Is it intrinsic? Is it built in and not bolted on, right? I wanted to figure out how easy is it for an admin to have this agentless security. And in the end, Carbon Black Cloud Workload or CBC Workload is VMware's data center security product. It means it can protect your workloads. Currently, with this first initial launch, it's able to protect Windows and Linux workloads on vSphere-based environments, and the future will enable customers to protect any workloads, any virtualized workloads in any cloud. And I thought I want to try it. I want to see how easy it is. I installed it in my home lab, tried to make sure that I get access to a Carbon Black cloud tenant, and then this article happened, and I was not expecting this feedback and this reach. So it's great to hear that I made it to the top 10 with this one.
Now, Michael, how did you go about installing? We have lots of listeners that are out there that run home labs, and one of the things that we have always talked about, that the challenge now that we're facing with some of these more SaaS services is how do you obtain even a home lab or an NFR access to this license. Now, obviously, we're employees and we get some freebies and some really nice things that we can run in our home lab. But is there a trial version for a listener that's out there, or can you explain a little bit of how you got access to install those necessary components in your lab? Was it something that you had as an employee, or can anyone go and do this?
Let's say in general, everyone can do that, right? And for sure, you can sign up for a trial. I'm in another position that I have certain contacts within VMware, and in this case, the security business unit, and they made it possible that I could get access to a shared tenant for the German team. And I started really from scratch. I had no clue about it. I opened the eDocs and was going through it step by step. And in the end, it worked. So what I figure out is, okay, agentless is not really agentless. We can call it agentless because the Carbon Black Cloud workload sensor is integrated in the VMware tools. And since the sensor is integrated in the tools, it means we don't need another agent, and we call it agentless. So quote unquote agentless, right? And I would recommend, if you want to test that, contact your VMware rep. They can get you in touch with or connect you with the security business unit and the specialists. They even can help you to build up your environment and to connect your VC environment with the Carbon Black Cloud instance. And then you're good to go. It was pretty easy. I think it took me 2 or 3 hours max, including the downloads of the necessary components. And I had my first protected workloads.
So reach out to your rep, reach out to your TAM, and they will help you to get a tenant set up to do a PSC here. Let's walk through some of the components you said that you had to install. So above and beyond, obviously, the components of this, as you had said, are some of it are built into the VMware Tools agent. What else needs to be installed to have this launched properly?
If I recall correctly, it was just the Carbon Black Cloud workload appliance. And this was all, to be honest. So you had the appliance. I had to manually download VMware Tools because it was not available with the current vSphere version I had back then. And after I signed up for the shared tenant and connected the Carbon Black Cloud workload appliance with my vCenter, everything was happening in the background. I had connection to the Carbon Black Cloud tenant, and then this was it. It was really simple.
And is that appliance an OVA, or is that something that needs installed on a Windows box?
It's an appliance. You can import that. It's very small. I think it's about 4 CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM, and maybe 40 gigs of storage. So it's pretty small. I haven't checked let's say the details of the appliance and how it's built, but I think it says that it's very easy. Everyone can do that, and that's why I think it's true that we talk about intrinsic, we talk about built-in, and leverage the power of your existing infrastructure.
And so you have these necessary components installed. Obviously, you have VMware tools. It's a pretty standard thing to put on a Windows or a Linux box. How is that appliance then aware of those VMs? Is there a specific install string that you have to when you're laying down VMware tools onto a VM to make it aware of the appliance, or how does the appliance gain knowledge of the VMs that you want to protect in the infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a good question. In the end, it's just connecting the vSphere, the vCenter server with this appliance. Then it can gather the data. It has the understanding of the environment. And this is how you then protect the workload. So it means in the vSphere client, you have a separate menu, a sub-menu, and then you can click on Carbon Black. And let's say, just set the tick box and enable protection for a certain VM.
So this is all built into the vSphere client. This isn't like I have to go to a separate web console for that appliance. It's built natively into the vSphere client that I click on that VM and then just a separate dialog box. And if I want to enable protection, I can.
Yes, exactly. So you don't have to go to the Carbon Black Cloud console. This is just needed for the initial setup, that you get the right data for to configure the connection. But as soon as you have done that, everything the vSphere administrator can do and see everything in the vSphere console. And this is the great thing here, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because last week we had a plugin guy come to talk about the vCenter plugin architecture. And I like your diagram that you have on your blog. So the blog is www.cloud13.ch, and you can just look.
Cloud13.ch.
Cloud13.ch. You have a diagram here that talks about it, right? Shows it nicely how this is laid out between the Carbon Black Cloud and vCenter. And it really is just a Carbon Black plugin that's part of vCenter that then enables it to talk to the Carbon Black Cloud. And it looks like VMware Tools is now enabled to allow that connection to happen back to the Carbon Black Cloud as well. So vCenter talks to Carbon Black Cloud through the plugin. VMware Tools talks to Carbon Black Cloud as part of the tools update that's available. And so now you just have the connections just kind of built in as long as you have that plugin. I don't know where the plugin comes from. Is that part of the install process when you went and set things up, or whether vCenter version 7 does have that Carbon Black plugin available?
Yeah, the appliance deploys in the end the plugin for the vCenter server, and then the collection can happen. Exactly.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is pretty smart. Have you used it? Like, so, okay, there's one thing that we've talked about, which is setup, which is sounds straightforward, right? And it is agentless. It's kind of not. It is agent. It does have an agent, but the agent's built into VMware Tools, right? So VMware Tools
marketing.
Yeah, clever marketing. Yeah, right. Especially for your blog, right? But it is, since you're not adding a new agent to your platform. Everybody already has VMware Tools installed on all your VMs, so that makes sense. So now it gets into like, okay, so how's it working? Like, this is the problem that I always have with security, which is security is one of these things is you only know it's not working when somebody brings down your server, manages to get in, and you have issues, right? So how do you know, or how do you get feedback that this thing is doing what it's supposed to be doing?
Within the vSphere client, you can, let's say, if you talk about vulnerability management, I think this is the first piece. To be honest, this was the only use case and feature I could test with the Carbon Black Cloud 10 I had. So I was wondering if I can see the vulnerabilities and the risk score. And what I just checked is, how does it look in the Carbon Black Cloud console? So let's say this is the ITsec view in the console. The vSphere admin works only with the vSphere client. And I could see that my Windows Server OS machines had some certain vulnerabilities with a score behind. And to be honest, I didn't do that much because I said, okay, this is fine, mission accomplished. I know now what it can do, how it works. And the next part I wanted to try, because I have a UC background, without, let's say, reading that documentation or knowledge-based articles, was to use that for Horizon. I said, okay, I know we struggled in the past. It's always a challenge if you talk about antivirus or for vulnerability management and scanning of images and virtual desktops. And I just enabled it. Obviously, it failed. It was not working since it was a cloning process in the background. I understood with my basic knowledge that it should work, but I think I did something wrong since let's say I'm not a specialist here. But what I mentioned on my blog in my article is that Horizon, together with Carbon Black, is a supported configuration. I just did something wrong, or I was not just aware of maybe a configuration item I should have done before, and it's something that works. So this is the great thing about vSphere and security right now. We can talk about workloads. Let's say naked vSphere customers only use vSphere. They can certainly integrate security. And even if you're a vSphere and Horizon customer, it gives you now the option to have built-in security and a one vendor strategy. And let's say this would be the sales pitch in the end.
And Michael, is there, because of that extra level of integration with the vSphere console, let's say that there's a vulnerability or an anomaly detected, is there any additional functionality that's gained, like that it could shut down the NIC or power off that particular VM above and beyond what's already built into the Carbon Black console? Or is it just the Carbon Black console functionality and more of the deployment and initial setup that's built into vSphere at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this is what I wanted to test and to see how it works, right? I'm not a security guy. Carbon Black was new for me. This product was new for me, and it was anyway a new product VMware has launched. And with the feature set I had, I couldn't go further. But in my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, dear colleagues, but you can do more. It's what I can do at the moment with my current setup is to see the vulnerabilities, to see my assets, like we see here in my article. But you can go further and isolate processes, network connections. You have an app, let's say application view, and you understand what's going on. And if you go further, if you have a security operation center, then you could, let's say, hunt the threat and do risk analysis, have IT service management included, all this kind of fancy stuff, I would say. But like I said, unfortunately, I couldn't test that. This is just one small piece, the tip of the iceberg.
Sure, absolutely. And
I'll do a shout out for people that are listening to the podcast. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, we do live stream this, and we are sharing his blog. And he does have the Carbon Black console in the blog, screenshots of that, where he's looking at the affected assets, vulnerabilities. It's actually a pretty interesting plugin that's there that gives you nice visualization of kind of graphs and charts of what's actually happening. So pretty interesting there.
So there's different workload bundles that I see that you call out on this blog article. When we refer to a bundle, a workload bundle, what do we mean by that, Michael? I'm not quite sure. I'm not familiar enough with the product, honestly, to know. So can you get into a little bit of that? See, there's three separate types. There's workload essentials, advanced, and enterprise, which follows our pretty standard ADRI conventions. But what is a bundle, a workload bundle, and what's the differences amongst the three? Why would I want to pick one versus the other?
So bundle means in the bundles we have, let's say, features. The one I had, I think this was the workload essentials, the lowest or the smallest one. This was more about vulnerability management and workload inventory in the end. And this includes the vCenter plugin plus the VM tools, which you would need or include the sensor. If you want to do more, if you talk about antivirus or next-gen antivirus, and if you want to go further with the analysis, and suddenly we talk about endpoint detection and response, and this is already a huge topic and very complex, then this would be, for example, the Workload Advanced Edition. So it means you would have a larger feature set. It's not only about inventory, it's not about the plugin only. It's really, you can do more, and we talk about antivirus here. And let's say if we talk about the use case of VDI, I would see something like the feature set of Workload Advanced in there for such an environment or deployment. But it's getting complicated again. So I'm mentioning Horizon, and with Horizon we got workspace security. So this is another bundle. This is another flavor, let's say. And we are only focusing here on the regular workload bundles.
Sure.
I know it already creates somehow confusion, but that's why I'm saying I try to simplify that. And if we only focus at the moment on workload, the third edition would be in the enterprise edition. So you can even do more, meaning if you want to spin up a complete security operations center, a SOC, then probably you have to go for a high edition. And if it's more about vulnerability management, you want to get started, you start with the essentials and the environment I had spin up.
It looks like from the great graph that you have on the blog that one of the key differences, obviously from essentials up to advanced, would be that you're gaining that next gen AV and the behavioral EDR. And then more, as you had spoke to, once you're up to the enterprise level, this is obviously for organizations that would have a dedicated SOC for vulnerability and threat hunting and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, for me it was very complicated to understand what is the real difference, and it starts, like you said, it starts with next gen and AV, so next generation antivirus. What does it mean? I grew up with antivirus. It's an agent. It detects something bad, and maybe you can block it, right? But we are going one step further here. The market is going one step further here, and is using combination of different technologies. We talk about behavioral detection, user behavior detection, and machine learning in the end. So I think this is the very important piece here. If you need to gather the data, if you want to do something with the data, you need something which is backed by artificial intelligence and machine learning. And this would be, for example, the big difference if we talk about, let's say, the higher edition compared to an essentials.
Yeah, I'm sure that we can all remember back to the semantic days of semantic console with the semantic agent, and then you'd have to get the agent deployed, and then we'd have to set up how often those signatures would update, and then how there would be a alerting back from the agent to the centralized console, and if there was a 0-day vulnerability that came out, whether that would did we get the updates patched in time out to the endpoints? Were those agents out on the edge? Were they back to grab something? Were they allowed to do internet updates, or do they have to come back to the central server? I mean, all of the complexity of that. And now we've evolved so that this whole entire next gen idea that these threats are happening so often and with such speed and rapid delivery it's CI/CD for the hacker community, right? I mean, that they're really constantly trying to figure out where these threats are at. So we're looking at different ways of machine learning and artificial intelligence to take that new AV solution that's out there and figure out how to identify anomalies. What's your normal run state, and where's your anomalies at for certain machines? And obviously, Carbon Black is doing that very, very well. And offering this as a baked-in solution within vSphere, so it's great to see. So we had talked about this. So we talked about it in a home lab sense. VMware tools, OVA the OVA installs into the vSphere client, and you're off and running. That's for on-prem workloads. How would this work if we wanted to do something that would be a cloud workload, like a VMC on AWS or one of our other cloud partner offerings? Is there a similar mindset where we're deploying that OVA, or we're deploying some type of packaged appliance? Do you know enough to speak to that? Is that something that you feel comfortable talking about, of how that would work for cloud workloads?
I think let's say if we talk about something like VMware Cloud on AWS or Azure VMware solution, where the VMware Cloud Foundation stack is running on the hyperscaler, you can look at it like a private cloud environment, right? So it's a regular vSphere environment, like you would have it on premises, but it's a managed service. And I could imagine since it's almost the same like an on-premise environment, that it would be the same procedure. For sure, it's not having the same cadence in terms of releases and the support, or if we talk about dependencies and different versionings. But I think in the end, it's the same approach. You would have the appliance. This is what I assume for the moment, and maybe in the future, it's maybe not needed anymore because we can do some fancy things in the public cloud.
And is there a minimum version with this as far as vSphere? I mean, could we do this on 6.7 or is it 7.0 min?
I think you can even go with 6.5, probably 6.5 update 3. Otherwise, for sure, you can go back to 6.7. This is definitely supported, and you just need the VMware tools 11.2, which is the case with the most recent version of vSphere. So I think you're good to go if you take the downloads today.
Nice. All right, getting back to your blog, which I got to say is a great blog. Everybody should go check it out.
It really is. It's clean, great interface. We look at a lot of blogs, Michael, and yours it's very concise, easy to read, a great format. I encourage everybody to go out to cloud13.ch.
Yep. So section in here on workload security for Kubernetes. And I know that, we've been talking about Kubernetes for the last year now, and it is one of the things modern apps everywhere, anywhere, I guess. So you have a section on workload security for Kubernetes. Did you get to, spend some time with this? What were your impressions? And as everybody asks about Kubernetes, like, what's the setup? How hard is it to make that work and function and managing your pods and your workloads running on them?
I think that's a total different game. At the time of when I wrote the article, it was not out yet. So at VMworld, we present a lot of security around containers and what we do with Carbon Black based on the Octarine acquisition. And let's say the first launch for Kubernetes and to provide security for it was at the end. I think it was around Christmas time. When we announced that, and so I didn't have the chance to take a look at it. But to be honest, if you talk about modern apps or Kubernetes, this is not my world yet. I'm clearly an infrastructure guy. I have to step up there and gain knowledge. And it would be great if I can one day, if I find the time, look at this product. I think there are already some blog articles around in the internet, and which can give you an insight how it works and how it could look like. But I think we are not there yet where we should be. So it's the first launch. It's, let's say, the partial security for a complete Kubernetes pipeline in the end for a software lifecycle. So as I understood it, it's something called Kubernetes Guardrails, which is more for the image process and the image scanning. But if you talk about the runtime piece of a container, this is not something we can provide yet. And we can expect a lot more to come from the Carbon Black portfolio in this year.
Yeah, so
in this area.
Yeah, so Octarine, Octarine, was the company we acquired in 2020. That's being integrated, so we have guardrails, but not necessarily runtime yet. And you depict that nicely on your blog as well. So interesting to see what comes out from VMware. With regard to that, and you can imagine that we're working on that. We always get into first. I want to backtrack a little bit and say you're out of Switzerland, right? So somewhere it's dark
yes.
Where you're at right now. I don't think I pinged you for that, so appreciate you staying up as late as you are to be there. What's on your roadmap for this year, right? As you produced this blog on security. Are you looking at other topics to cover in your blog this year?
Yes, definitely. So what I'm looking at, or what the topics are with my customer right now, is mostly edge computing. So we not talk only about modern apps. We can talk, for example, about the edge. And people have a different understanding of edge and what VMware can offer. And it's a very complex, a very huge topic. We can talk about, maybe I can even talk about the modern airport of the future with emerging technologies, with AI, ML, that you provide a touchless experience at the airport. Because of COVID, you need to have the right technology, meaning You can walk through an airport, getting straight to the airplane without any other person interfering in your journey at the airport. Something like this. This I can imagine that this is a pretty hot topic. It's complex, and I think we need to, or I need to do more in this space. The other part is always the multi-cloud and VMware Cloud Foundation. I think VMware talks a lot about this. I mean, VMware people, different people who are blogging, but it's still a very complex topic. And I think I will do more in this space, more about hybrid and multi-cloud, and why VCF is relevant, and maybe the use cases behind.
All right.
This is what I've planned so far.
Nice. Both of those topics sound relevant. I noticed on your blog too, and I'm just kind of picking through your blog too, so forgive me if I ask stuff. But I noticed you also have certifications. You got your vExpert in 2021, so congrats on that one. You're a VMware certified professional. You have Azure Fundamentals, AWS Cloud Practitioner. Then we start getting into Advanced Professional 7 for VMware. You have VMware Specialist. You even have Cisco Certified CCNP. What's your certification plan for this year? Anything standing out with regard to what you want to get on your sidebar next?
Yeah, I plan to sit on the Horizon Deploy exam, so the VCAP Deploy exam for the DTM track, since I already got the design part, but COVID made that impossible, so I cannot go to a test center. And to be honest, I have too much work. I expect another baby in summer, and I think my wife is not so happy if I stay in the office after work and just study for a few weeks. So I think this certification, so to achieve the VCIX DTM certification, I need to postpone that for a while. I wanted even to go for the VCF specialist exam just to see which question would come up. Is it possible to pass this exam without any hands-on, just in the lab, and to reading a lot of PDFs? Like I said, I am having not enough time at the end of the day, and I believe if I do something like this, it's probably going to be end of the year. And like I said, so far only these two.
Okay, that was an easy question. I got another medium easy question for you because I love this. You run a home lab, and it's a super micro home lab. I'm on a super micro myself for my home lab. Any plans? What's your weakest part of your home lab, and any plans over the next 3 years for what you're going to do with your home lab?
I mean, you always have to think about, do I really need the home lab? I think this is the biggest topic right now. Do I have time to maintain it? I mean, it's vSphere 7, but I could update it to vSphere 7 Update 2. I could talk about Tanzu, do something like this. I think the weakest spot is the networking. I don't need redundant management uplinks. I have a basic setup with 3 nodes using vSAN, let's say consumer disks. I would expect that a disk would probably crash in a few months or in a few years without me touching the lab for that time, because I'm busy taking care of my baby, right, and with work. And I hope I will need it someone to get deeper in the topic, maybe to get my first hand-on experience with Tanzu or vSphere with Tanzu.
Okay, follow-up question. Do you keep your home lab powered up, or do you only power it up when you have something that you want to work on?
I'm a lazy person, so it's still turned on. I like also, if I go back to the cellar, or we call it the room, with the heater for the water and the water softener. I like to open the door and hear the fans blowing, and that's why I also keep it up running. And if I need it for a blog article very quickly, then I know I don't have to spin it up. I know everything is working. vSAN data stores are still here. So yeah, I'm lazy, and I really happily pay the electric bill in the end.
Yeah, right. But
Consumer versus commercial SSDs seems to be the spaces versus tabs of the vExpert home lab new debate. There's so much discussion out there of what you can get away with as far as commercial SSDs versus the consumer or prosumer ones that are out there. But Yeah, I'm the same way, Michael. I tend to keep my lab on it as well and keep it up and running. It's especially difficult depending on how you do the shutdowns, right? And with the vSAN environment. But great to see that you're running one there. And anything else that you would add besides an additional node? Do you set vGPUs or anything out there else that you're looking at?
I'm not one of the crazy guys like Eric Busank or the Home Lab King, who's quite famous, right? So I wanted to have a vGPU back in the EUC days to do some testing with Horizon. So I was not lucky enough to get one. I think my wife also wouldn't approve to spend money for that. But yeah, I think it's based on your needs. I don't have much expectation from the lab. If it's running, great. If it's not running, I will take care of it another time. And if I have to replace something after a few months or years, I will invest a few $100 and make it running again.
Right,
so it
sure.
depends on your needs, right?
Right. We have these, the home lab kings on here, the ones that spend, 6 figures US in some of these investments, but we shouldn't set that standard out there for the community, right? These things can be run on NUCs and very small deployments with, for a 2-node with a witness for vSAN just to get you started as you're learning the environment, whatnot. And as you had mentioned, this can scale as your needs
Exactly.
and experience develop, that you can add that additional node and scale up just as we do in the large commercial data centers. So it's great to see, and we should acknowledge that that's out there, that it doesn't have to be something that's absolutely crazy and over the top.
Definitely not.
To produce great content like you do.
Yeah, we should also do a shout out to the vExpert program and the VMUG program for giving you year licenses. So if you need licenses, there's you can go do that. It's always one of my questions, which is how do I license this stuff? And back to your carbon black, question we do have is what do we do with licenses on SaaS products, right? Because that's becoming a challenge. And where I thought you were going with your original, do I want to keep my lab up? When do I just go to an AWS cloud server and just run all this stuff over there, right? And not even have hardware anymore, but just, create enough in some kind of SaaS environment that I'm just spending my, if I had a $2,000 budget to do hardware, maybe every refresh every 3 to 4 years, can I divide that 2,000 by a monthly cost on a SaaS VM somewhere and get enough that I can set up and use the software there versus, keeping something spun up in my house. Now, you have an interesting point, Michael, which is you don't get to hear the fans. You don't get to open your closet door and hear everything whirring and look at everything and physically see all the lights blinking, knowing that it's running and that you're doing it yourself, which I think does have some benefit. But at the same time, learning cloud GUIs and menus and how to manage VMs in the cloud is also a skill set that I think we're all going to have on our resume. And so you almost need to have both, or maybe you don't need to have a home lab anymore. That really what we're going to do is go run SaaS lab services in a SaaS environment. And that's going to be the end of my days having hardware, keeping my house warm. But have you been thinking about that?
I mean, if you think about, let's say my role, I'm a solution engineer. It's for me, people expect that I know a lot from almost everything, right? Even the public cloud, and it's an operation model with different services hosted in different clouds. And why did I do the certification? It was because I want to understand, let's say, the other world, the other vendor better, because as we know, VMware has partnerships. We have integrations with different clouds and different services. And I think it's mandatory today to have this kind of knowledge and to get experience in the other world, that you understand what you can do, and that me, for my role, that I can help customers and partners in the best way. And this would also allow me to write, let's say, real-life blog articles for real-life use cases.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have to do. Everybody in chat and is agreeing that you almost need both nowadays to be an effective IT administrator, right? You need to have both, and it might be good for us to look for a community manager that has a community person, IT practitioner, blogger, or whatever, that has both, that has managed to set up this and can give us best practices on how to decide how much to build in the cloud versus how much to build on-prem in our own home labs, and listen to what the experiences are from a few people that have actually done both and done a good job at that. And do you create a hybrid environment where you're moving workloads from one to the other and so forth, because that's kind of where everything is going. And really, from a realistic perspective, you got to have both. And VMware is certainly jumping heavily into SaaS services and all of this. So for instance, Carbon Black will be a SaaS service, and you have it on-prem, but you're running the SaaS service, in the cloud. So this is a reality of what we're all going to be dealing with in the next few years. So we should probably do a deep dive on that topic on its own, right? So, yeah.
In some ways, right, you could think about it that if you would move entirely to the cloud, like let's say that you want to move your home lab up to VMC on AWS, you get into that mentality of now I have what I need on AWS, and I know AWS well. But to Michael's point, doesn't that limit you a little bit of, well, we need to know what the other offerings are out there. We need to look at GCP. We need to look at what is out there for Azure. So in some ways, I think that really validates, as Tony Foster has put here on chat as we're coming along, that you do need that both. You need the on-prem, which is obviously a tremendous amount of the existing workloads that are out there. But then you also need to have that cloud model as well. And the more that you can get experience with the flavors of the cloud model that's out there, I think the better off that you are.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. If you could go for VMC on AWS, and if you want to test the product, I think this is great. But one of the reasons, and I think many people will agree here, the advantage or the cool thing about the home lab is that you can order parts, you can install them, you can mount them, you can look for a fancy case, put even some nice shiny LEDs inside. And in the end, if you press the power button the first time, this gives you satisfaction if it's coming up and running in a successful way. And I think this is the part which is keeping people excited. The geeky stuff to configure VLANs and routing. And I know people having crazy BGP routing tables, and I don't know, do stuff which you normally shouldn't do at home. This is stuff you do at work. And I think this would be missing if you go for something like VMC on AWS.
You're right. There is that geek factor, right?
Yeah.
If we can even say that I'll call it the geek factor. I'll take the blame for that. But the idea of the physical button press, the shiny blinky light, that first time to spin up a box that you've gone out and procured the individual parts and whatnot, and the satisfaction is deeply satisfying of going through what super micro do I need to buy? Where am I going to get the RAM at? What drive should I use? Now, how am I going to do the networking? Is there special cables that I want to use for color coding and whatnot? And putting all of that componentry together to build all of your own infrastructure. If you're doing something through an ILO or a DRAC or some remote console in AWS, yeah, it's definitely not the same, right? There's something to be said for that button press and still doing the componentry, if you will.
I would totally miss that. Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing that I like about having my own gear, and I put a super macro down in a buddy's cage in San Jose, so it just sits in his cage, and I have it, and we have vSphere on it. Is that when we want to spin up another server to do something, right? The cost is zero. Right. Like, if I want to spin up 3 new VMs to do something, the cost is still zero, right? I have to manage my memory utilization and my workloads, but a super micro has a lot of, I think it has 64 gig on it. So, and that's enough to run a lot of little VMs doing various things. And the cost for additional capacity is 000. So I don't feel guilty spinning up a project for, X amount of time, or leaving it running until I feel like bringing it down. We spun up a first star online server, game server, and we have like a 50 Brazilians in playing, and it doesn't cost me anything, right? Where the minute I go cloud and I start building my lab out on cloud, and I've done this, I have, AWS instances, right? Next thing I turn around and I got $1,000 a month bill, right? That I didn't even realize, if you don't actually decommission the VM, they're going to charge you regardless of whether you have it spun up or not. You actually have to destroy the bits, right? Which cloud becomes this for a lab guy, for a guy that's testing, and installing and then not bringing things back down. The bills get weird, and because I'm cheap, because we're all cheap, because this is not what we're getting paid for. This is kind of like our education budget. Yeah, that's where I think my own gear makes a lot of sense for me, because I don't have to worry about the dollar spend month after month, right? So, yeah, that's
the antithesis to that being, though, that the spend, right, when it's truly coming out of your pocketbook, you learn that, right? That's going to be a quick learn, right? If there's going to be that $1,000 charge that's out there, you're going to know about it, and that would carry over to your commercial application, hopefully.
This is
definitely
true. Yeah, this is true. It does make you coach whoever you're working with on apps that are in the cloud. You coach them. Hey, be careful. You want to have Cloud Health or something set up to manage, because these guys will charge you, right? And they're there to make money. So be careful. But on the other hand, hardware costs money, so it's not like everything is free. We are coming up to the top of the hour, so with I think about 8 minutes left here, thought I would just ask Michael, are you on Twitter? Matt, I know that's your favorite question, but I'll throw it in here, which is, are you on Twitter? Do you do something besides blog? Are you famous Instagram photo taker? Do you do foodie blogs? What is your social profile? How do people follow you, Michael?
I'm really bad at this. Let's say LinkedIn is probably the most active platform I'm using. But I'm active on Twitter since, I think, when I started blogging. I created a Twitter account for sales marketing to get in touch with the right people and the community. My handle is _ Michael Rebmann. I think Björn Brundot on Twitter mentioned my name in the comments, since you haven't mentioned my handle. And I think you can get in touch with me on Twitter. You can also try it on LinkedIn. Sure.
Okay.
All right.
So that was _ Michael and then Rebmann being REBMANN, correct, sir?
Yep, that's right.
And Michael is MICHAEL versus my favorite Nordic spelling, MIKKEL. But no, we're going traditional Michael, MICHAEL, Rebmann, REBMANN. With an underscore at the beginning. There you go. Okay.
With the Swiss, you never know.
You never know. So where in Switzerland do you live? Because I've been to Switzerland, and it's like a lot of people live across the borders of different places and telecommute or commute into Germany, or they commute into whatever the other countries are, Belgium, or I forget which one is up next to Switzerland there. But where do you live, and where do you actually work?
So I live in the northwestern part of Switzerland, in Basel. Some people know it. It's close to the German border. And I'm living in a small town outside of the city. And normally I work at least once. I should go there. I work in Zurich in the office. But as it happens with my job, normally I would travel around here in Switzerland, sometimes in Europe. And I think since 12 months, it's not possible for some reason anymore, and that's why I'm stuck here in home office.
Nice. Other question for you, which is out of the blue, but I'm this is my global experience. How much does it cost for a kilowatt hour of power?
Oh, no clue. 20 cents.
No clue.
6 cents in the night.
Wow.
I just pay the bill. I don't take care about that.
We pay 17 cents in California, so 17 cents a kilowatt hour, which isn't too bad if you keep a couple 100-watt server up and running. You're going to be spending maybe $25-30 a month US to do that. So there you go.
Yeah. But I think my home lab didn't make that much a difference. So it was quite okay at the end of the month. Nice.
All right. Well, Michael Rebmann, thank you very much for being a great blogger. Go check out his blog, cloud13.ch. Matt, anything else for him before we move on to the vBarbecue report with Tony Foster?
I just want to point out an additional blog entry that Michael has out there on how the title of the particular entry was How Becoming a VMware vExpert Changed My Life. And I read through it prior to us starting this particular episode. And it's a fantastic history of Michael's career and why he decided to pursue certain certifications and eventually be expert. And above and beyond the carbon black entry, I'd encourage others to go out there and read through it as well. It's very well written and an excellent read.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Thanks a lot, Michael. We'll transition now. Thank you for listening to the end, guys. If you listen to the end, you get to hear about the V-Barbecue report, and I will actually show you our top secret VMware Influencer 100 plaque that's going out to the VMware Influencer 100. If you're a Influencer 100 member, you know who you are, and you should get this. If you have a lot of followers and you get a lot of traffic, we tag you as a VMware Influencer 100, and we give you special stuff and engage with you differently. But Tony Foster, I know I'm sitting here looking at you. Maybe we add you to the stream. There you are. How's it going? Any interesting barbecue reports this week?
It's going great. So I have two things. This week, steak. I did a couple of nice steaks this last week, and they turned out great. First steaks of the season, and it's just really exciting to have them. I soak them in beer.
Did you have snow on the ground while you were out there barbecuing out there in Kansas?
No, actually, it's been around 70 degrees this last week, so there's no snow anywhere to be found.
Excellent.
I have my fingers crossed. Maybe this week we'll get some snow this weekend. No, so that's the first part of my barbecue report.
Do you run up? Do you monitor the temperature when do you put a probe in the steak and then run it to like 135 and then so you know exactly what's inside, or are you just kind of like a time it and go for it?
So I'm one of these people who will sit there and watch how it's cooking on the grill. And there's this great tip, and I can't remember where I learned it from, but if you take your pinky and your thumb, you can start moving through the different grades of finish on your steak by touching the muscle right below your thumb. And then as you move your fingers, you'll notice that it gets softer and softer until you get to a rare steak finish. So you can do a feel test with your hand without actually touching the steak to find out where your steak is in the finish. So it works really nicely.
You're living up there in cattle country, right? I think I've seen you on the web, going to the county fairs and the 4-H clubs where they're actually raising the cows that we actually manage to eat every once in a while. So I guess you would learn those kind of stuff, that kind of tricks from your community ecosystem.
Very much so. And the other thing is fire safety. With the grill and barbecuing, especially this time of year, at least in the Midwest, it's fire season. Don't let your charcoal get out of control and set the neighborhood on fire.
Note to self. Smokey the Bear reports that he wants you to be safe as well. All right. Well, that's it. Traditional steak. Did you do anything else, or was it the traditional steak that you got one more?
Just the traditional steak. Just the traditional steak, and be careful with the charcoal.
It is that time of year again where it's going to be nice weather and people are going to be able to barbecue. I'm going to try to do some ribs because it is that time to get some nice smoky ribs going. And we're coming into the smoker season where, because it's nice enough outside, you can do your 6 or 7 hour smoke. We'll get Corey Romero on again to talk about what he's been doing up there in Utah when it comes to smoking. A lot of good beef out there. I would say that we did the same thing where, just start out with the basics, get yourself some nice cuts of meat, and it's literally 3 minutes on each side. Flip it a couple times, and I use a temperature probe because I don't understand that finger thing you did, and I just make sure that it gets up to 135, and anything over 135, it turns out really nice. Yeah, there you go, Matt. I didn't hear a word you said. If you said something, I don't know what you said.
No, but just finger gestures. I'm waiting for the steak plugin for PowerShell to make an API call to figure out when mine are done.
There you go.
I just burn the thing to death.
Right, there you go. I'll do a Raspberry Pi. You can get these fancy mobile that they put the thermometer in and, watch it on your iPhone. But the truth is with steak, it only takes like literally 3 minutes aside twice. You flip it twice. So the most you're doing is 9 minutes. With charcoal, I have a temperature gun, and you get your charcoal up to about 450, 500 degrees in the grill, which is easy. That's just basically lighting your charcoal and letting it get hot. And then you're like 3, and you're done. And it's, so why you need a mobile app with a temperature probe and, walk away from the grill, what you call chefs that walk away from their grill? Burn masters, right? Because if you're not watching, it's going to burn.
Eric, why do you need a home lab? I think that's why you need the fancy monitoring tools for steak.
Yes, yeah, it's a way to convince your significant other that we're going to spend some more money on some gear, right? Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, again, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you very much to Julia Klaus for recording and making sure everything runs fine. Thank you for Michael for being here. It was fun to see your blog article and talk to everybody. We will be back here again next week, and we will continue on. I think we've got everybody booked out until mid-May, so we're going to be a busy schedule this year, and hope to see you guys online at VMworld. VMworld is bubbling and percolating. They are going to be talking about doing some real-time online community with Slack this year, so pay attention to that. We should have a better community experience for everybody that's watching sessions together. That'll be a big one for VMworld this year. They are going to put more tech around community and a virtual village. So stay tuned there. Until then, everybody have a good weekend. Stay safe. Hopefully everybody finds a way to get vaccinated in the next couple months so that we can see you somewhere at a VMUG. Until then, have a great day. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you to the community. We'll see you next week.